Hey, I'm Davin Friedman, class of 2026. Welcome to the Rambler Podcast.
And I'm Natalie Spano, class of 2026. Before you dive into this episode, we wanted to share a quick message with you.
At Cathedral Prep, every opportunity we have in the classroom, on the field, and beyond is made stronger by the Fund of Excellence.
This fund supports tuition assistance, academic programs, athletics, and faith formation. Everything that makes prep.
When you give, you help students like us thrive.
Please make your impact today by visiting www.cathedralprep.com/give.
Thank you for believing
in us.
Hi everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith. I am a proud member of the Cathedral Prep class of 2011, and I have the pleasure of working here at Prep in our Advancement and Alumni Relations Office. Welcome to episode number 96 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. I'll be your host for today's episode, and we're excited to have Jamie Hammond join us as a guest. Jamie graduated from Cathedral Prep in 1994 and is a seasoned consultant, digital pioneer, and reinvention strategist who has ridden every major wave of the technological change, from the Y2K era to today's rise of generative AI. With a career spanning consulting, startups, and executive education, Jamie brings a raw, relatable perspective on career transformation and leadership in uncertain times. His work speaks directly to professionals navigating burnout, disruption, and the question so many people are asking right now, what's next? Through his field guide, What's Next for Me, which has been released now by the time this episode comes out, Jamie helps individuals trade confusion for clarity, bet on themselves, and take bold, intentional next steps in their careers. So all that to say, Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jimmy. And also a proud Blessed Sacrament graduate.
Oh, I didn't need that fellow Bulldog. Good to hear. Yeah, so and that's a great little tidbit to know about you, that we share that as well. Good old days at the Bixby Bowl.
Yes, yeah. A lot of good times there, for sure.
Yeah, super fun. Well, that's great. I'm glad we finally got a chance to connect. I know we've been meaning to do this episode with you, but the timing worked out great with the release of your field guide, your book.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it. And,
you're welcome.
It means a lot to come down here, and really my first podcast on this book, so the timing does work well.
Good. I'm the kickoff for your tour, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we'll get a little bit into your book and this, this conversation, whatnot. Ask you what kind of, inspired you to start this, and what you were seeing out there in the professional world that led to the need to make that. But where I always like to start the episodes, as many of the listeners are familiar, is kind of looking back on your prep days. Maybe looking back and saying, what led to your decision to attend Cathedral Prep.
Yeah, a couple things. Thinking about just what led me to come here. Obviously, your friends play a big factor in it too. So there was definitely friends that I knew that were coming here. But also I knew I'd be challenged academically. I'd be challenged in how I showed up. And coming to prep meant that there would be a framework to help set you up for success. Not that it would be delivered to you, but that framework would be there to help you excel and do well in life and business and everything else. Was the intention.
Yeah, and it is something that later on in life I have learned to appreciate about, to your point, that framework, that foundation of what the school helps provide. It's not because you come here, you get X, Y, and Z, but because you come here, you get challenged and you get, become better through those 4 years of, teenage years that are so important.
Very formative, yes, I agree.
Yes, absolutely. Well, tell us a little about your experience as prep as a student. Did you play any sports? Were there certain teachers you had that really inspired you?
Yeah. It was very formative. I ended up playing water polo. In fact, just my junior and senior year, I was a little bit of a late bloomer, which I would then end up going to college, University of Dayton, to play water polo there all 4 years and actually win a national championship. And I got into it through lifeguarding, actually, at Presque Isle. So I was asked to come out by a few prep guys that were playing water polo and said, hey, you should try this sport out. And then academically, I had some great teachers, and you'll know one of them, Mr. Achille.
Yes.
Not only did I get to have him as a teacher, but obviously he coached me at Blessed Sacrament in basketball. That was always fun, and I saw him at the reunion last summer, which was great to catch up with him. And then Father Hahn was very formative too, and then Mrs. Doyle in a class called Typing 1 and 2, which
To all
I'm
the kids
sure
listening, typing. That was a
typing,
class,
yes.
on a typewriter.
which would help set me up later on in life for a lot of typing on a computer. So it was very good and helped me out a lot. And of all those teachers, they were understanding, empathetic, but really you could see, wanted to see you grow, and that meant a lot.
Well, we can't be, have an episode where we talk about teachers if Mr. Achilles' name, of course, doesn't come out, especially between two Bulldogs. I also had him as a basketball coach at Blessed Sacrament. That was at the tail end of his coaching career there.
Passion. He did a lot to teach you about passion.
That's right. Yes. Whether it was academically or on the court, passion was definitely something that Bob Achilles is known for.
Yes. Yep.
That's funny. And of course, Father Hahn, great educator here at Prep as well. I didn't have Miss Doyle, but I am familiar with the typewriting classes that had taken place at Prep and whatnot.
That are now probably archaic, but I'm sure there's some new class that is going to help out. When I reflected on that, there's classes now that are being taught at Prep and other schools that are probably going to be really formative to how people work in the future. And that was one that gave me the base to do well. Yeah.
And congratulations also. I didn't realize national champion water polo at Dayton. That's really cool.
Yeah. When I went there, I was recruited to go there, and they dropped, because of Title IX, they dropped from varsity to club. And at the time, me and the incoming freshman class, we only found out 2 weeks beforehand. So Ken Cray, another big Prep alum, and I went there, and we roomed together all 4 years, and we ended up, I think our final record was 96-8-1 over the 4 years we were there, and playing schools like Michigan and Florida State or Notre Dame. So they're pretty big programs. So it was fun.
I would say so.
And we had great coaches there too that really helped kind of, my standard growing up was Bob Achilles, and I was fortunate enough to then go to college and have another great standard with my coaches there. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat. And especially for the fact that you didn't really start to pick it up till your junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think helped because I've always had a curious mind, and I was very curious to learn more about the sport, where I noticed a lot of the people coming into Dayton that were maybe grew up in Chicago or the West Coast that have been playing since they've been like 4 or 5 years old, they're all getting burnt out at that point and just had enough. I think us latecomers or ones that didn't play the sport as much as they did really could kind of, really sink our teeth into it and wanted to do well.
Yeah, my only experience playing water polo was in gym class. We would play for maybe a 2 or 3 week period, maybe my sophomore or junior year. Coach Grahowski was the gym teacher at the time that I was here. So you'd go in the pool with your buddies and we're doing water polo today, boys, and that was my experience playing.
Did you still have the 4-lane pool in the basement back then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember Ed Honorato was our teacher. I would be the only one in the deep end that could tread water, basically. All the other guys are just beating themselves, senseless in the shallow end. Right. So, I do remember that. That was pretty funny.
I remember in my class, I had a couple of the kids that are actually stud water polo players, too. And they would just go right down the pool, score goals on all of us and just completely smoke us. And it was a lot of fun. But, it's a good experience, good memory to have.
Yeah, it made me definitely feel my age when I played with Jim Doyle played water polo at Prep. And then his little brother, Mike Doyle, then was, up to my knee at the time. Then I see him coaching the team to a state championship, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Oh,
man, that's really fun. Well, water polo is another sport of Preps that's been out there and been very successful through the years. And obviously you guys being a part of that, that's great.
Yeah. Oldest team sport in the Olympics. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
You got to get some Ramblers in there.
Yeah, that would be great someday to see that.
That's right. Well, I guess last question in regards to Prep before we start to talk about your professional journey. But in what ways did Prep kind of help lay a foundation for your career path? We've talked about that framework, as you mentioned earlier on, and why you chose to go there. But what maybe were some other specific things that really helped you out?
Yeah, the high expectations. So if you came here, you needed to perform academically, athletically, but also socially. So are you able to have conversations with people you meet and, obviously figuring out kind of where you wanted to go, but knowing that you had those boundaries of framework of success around you, and those high expectations really help kind of motivate you to make the most of your time here. And, a lot of people in Erie, send their kids here. It's a big investment, and, you want to make them proud too. So I think not only did Prep help with that, my parents being very supportive and helpful, that was a big part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like you get into this environment and there's an expectation right away that, you know, being a Rambler, what it means, how you carry yourself in the classroom, out in the field, wherever you go in life. You kind of carry that with a badge of honor that you know, you kind of expect yourself to do more and be more. But that was an expectation, of course, put on us by our teachers and coaches and a lot other alumni that were already out there.
Yeah, definitely. All part of it. And pushing yourself, you know, is a big part of coming to prep.
Yeah. So. And speaking of alumni, it was neat. We just saw each other a couple weeks ago down in Pittsburgh, actually. So we're doing this RV tour. We don't actually have a real RV. That was part of the fun image, you know. To
those alumni listening, you can donate.
That's right. Hey, if somebody's got an RV, they'd like to throw it out there, we'll be glad to have it. But yeah, it was fun. Our first stop being in Pittsburgh and hosting the reception there at PNC Park. It was great to see you there, and thank you for attending. But it's fun to host things like that. And our goal is to do that more around the country and bigger cities to host more alumni to get together.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to do, and it seems like it'd be big time in demand. So hopefully that continues.
Yeah, we had somebody throw out there and say, come to Seattle. I don't know if we'll make it that far. We'll have to see how many alums are there. But definitely, you know, reach out to us and we'll see what we can get around to.
That'd be cool. At one point, I know there's obviously a huge contingent in New York City. I think at one point the Times did a big article about all these people from Erie in general, but also Prep and the other schools just getting together in Erie. So that could be a good stop for you guys.
Yeah, New York City, Tampa, Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago, Boston. We have a bunch of cities kind of identified. No dates really selected yet, but we're going to start to kind of pick away at those.
Very cool.
Yeah,
good.
But yeah, and then, you know, it was fun reading your bio, learning more about, you know, what you've been able to do in your career. You've lived through some multiple major technological, you know, shifts in the way that business is conducted, education is done, just the world we live in every day, just personally too. You know, you mentioned from Y2K to this now generative AI, and that seems to be the talk of, you know, the news and everything nowadays. A lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of very positive, strong points and where it could go. I guess, you know, to start off kind of talking about this, you know, as you look back kind of a little bit on your career, which transition forced maybe some of the biggest personal or professional, you know, reinvention for you through those times?
Yeah, you know, I was reflecting on that, Jimmy, when I was coming in here, and I can honestly say I've had a career in a field that didn't exist pre-1995, pretty much, digital, you know, and what does that mean? And I think the biggest takeaway, and I sat down to write this book years ago. I kind of gave myself that challenge to get it done when I was leaving one of the companies I was at. But as I reflected back on it, you know, for going from something that didn't exist, you know, I was in college when the internet was discovered, and then just crafting a career out of that through multiple transitions and changes, just having that framework in place, again, it's a popular word that keeps coming up, to be able to deal with everything, the messy middle. So there's gray, there's ambiguity, but then how do you figure out your path to be successful in that? You know, I would say the biggest change now, I'd have to say, you know, I've been through the internet being founded, Y2K, you know, cloud computing, and all these other big transformations. AI, and Microsoft just published a report last month. 1.2 billion people have already adopted this technology, which is the quickest and biggest technology shift ever that we've ever witnessed. Yeah. So, you know, there's 3 or 4 revolutions in our lifetime, you know, with the Industrial Revolution through the internet being discovered and now AI, and it's just, how do we deal with that, but in a human way? And there's more stuff we'll talk about, I think, in this interview that will kind of expose, you know, what to be concerned about and what is just kind of noise.
Yeah. So I guess, and we'll get into some of that stuff too, but I guess just listening to you talk, do you approach it with a sense of, I don't know, clarity, strength? You approach it with, you know, just a timidness? I mean, what's kind of your mental mindset as you look at this?
Yeah, clarity is a word that comes up a lot in the book too. It's people need to take that step back and have that clarity, especially people around my era. We've been through this before, and we know what is maybe hype versus what is reality. I don't think it's something you want to bury your head in the sand over. I also know academically, colleges, high schools, they're all dealing with how to deal with this. The same thing happened with the discovery of the internet. All these, students are going to be cheating everywhere, and it's there to assist and actually accelerate in most cases humanity, not really take things away from it. Yeah.
Here's a kind of oddball question, but one I'm just thinking of while you were chatting. Would you say, in your perspective, you have more concern over the older generation using technology now with AI, or the younger generation who's naive and doesn't know any better yet?
I would say maybe with the older, and the older in the case of not trying to understand it. I think the younger generation, just like say when the internet was discovered or cloud computing was, like, they'll embrace it, they'll learn to adapt to it. I'm looking at your iPad right now. Seeing kids when they're small adapt to digital technology, they don't have that fear like we did when we were growing up of, doing things or making mistakes on it. They figure it out in 5 seconds, where you should give that to maybe the older generation. They don't even want to have to deal with it. And it's fine both ways. I would say I don't have concern for either. They'll adapt their own personal way. Yeah. But I definitely feel like the younger generation will evolve quicker with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, it's a good perspective. I've seen my kids use their iPads and stuff without, you're right, any fear. That's normal for them. That's just what we give them to be able to use in certain functions and whatnot. It's been fun for me. I'll take a picture of our kitchen and I'll tell, ChatGPT, put a picture of an alligator in there. And I'll show my son, look what I found this morning in the kitchen. And he's like, Mom, is that real? So that's been pretty fun to be able to start to implement some of that technology for stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's this big new wide world that we're entering into, and there could be that uncertainty. But one of the things that is mentioned in your bio is kind of transition out of technology here for a second. You talk about the concept of betting on yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's something that a lot of us professionals who hear that, those who are listening right now, it kind of can resonate from them, because I'm sure they've had moments in their careers where they've had to bet on themselves. And I know I've experienced that a couple different times. What did that maybe actually look like for you in some of the real moments of your career?
Yeah, that evolved a few different ways. And, take a step back. It's good to surround yourself with a system that'll push you and motivate you. It's also good to take that step back and really get that clarity of, is this what's best for me? And there's a couple pivotal points in my life. I remember working at an academic nonprofit institution for a number of years that is very well known, and then going to a for-profit institution years later and just seeing the product, and it didn't really agree with me. And I quit, and this is at the advent of LinkedIn. I pretty much just updated my LinkedIn profile, independent, and an old boss came calling and found me that way. But that was a big moment, because I hadn't really cleared it with my family yet, and I just kind of made that big decision and did that. But it worked out in the end. In other ways too, like when I was wrapping up a very good consulting career at the time, months before I had left that company, I said, I need to bet on myself and get into coaching. And I had a colleague that I used to work with at a company, Matt Doan, who ran a coaching program. He was just trying it. He left that consulting firm just to start doing that. I really, gave that a lot of credit. Good for him. He had a plan. He knew what he was doing. He had that roadmap. He went and did it, and he bet on himself. So I enrolled in his program. I've been doing that the past 3 years, and it's been very helpful to help motivate and push me too. And do things like this book or other career decisions.
Yeah, I've found that having a community is essential, right? Having those people that you can kind of confide in, whether it's having a mentor or it's having a couple other people in the same career pursuits or career avenues as you. Maybe not the same field, but you're at the same kind of level where you're pushing each other, you're encouraging each other. We all need that.
Yeah, because you're not going to get that at your everyday work. Your family's always there for you, but sometimes they don't understand everything that you're going through, and having that. Short of therapy, having that kind of group, that's going through a lot of similar things is super helpful.
And I think a lot of us who, you played water polo, I played baseball, a lot of us who've been a part of sports growing up, we've been used to that team environment and
Yeah.
pushing each other and encouraging each other to do better. I think it's a little bit more natural even for us to kind of cling to those groups and those communities.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I think there's been science. I remember reading a Wall Street Journal article once that said a lot of the firms on Wall Street at the time were hiring people who were on team sports just because of that. But not to take anything away from individual sports. But
yeah, no, and I think those who are listening, maybe you're in theater, you're in different programs, you've been a part of team activities of sorts. But for me, I wasn't a theater guy. I was a baseball player and played football growing up and whatnot, and of course basketball for Bob Achille.
Yeah.
1 year of basketball, but I got Bob Achille as my coach, so it was worth
that's
it.
good.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've worked in consulting, to startups, to executive education, a lot of different fields, which is pretty neat that you've had these different experiences. But I guess, what are some common, leadership mistakes that you've seen? Some things that, for us as we're listening to you talk, some things that we can start to pick up on and learn how, we can be better.
Yeah. I think a lot of that kind of mistakes that I'm seeing, just confusing activity with impact. Is a big one. So, Jamie's really busy over there. He must be having a huge impact, where maybe Jamie isn't, or things of that nature. But also, I've learned, especially since COVID, there's a lot of creativity that can come from kind of stepping away from your desk. During COVID, I was in a very high pressure consulting environment where I was in the field of e-commerce, and that got big all of a sudden with people wanting to shop online,
Right?
And very critical. And in some instances, we were helping state governments figure out how to tackle things like the DMV, or grocery stores figure out how they're going to get food to the people who needed it the most. So I ended up, I was at my desk a lot during COVID. Luckily, since I'd been traveling as a consultant before that, was very prepared to work from home. But boy, does that really burn you out. And then you can't switch off after that, and you're home, and maybe that bleeds into and affects your home life. So, just because, maybe I was I had a lot of activity that day, there was days I would step away and be like, my impact wasn't that great. And maybe it would be better if I took those breaks and got out and got a different perspective. And just, assuming, another one I see is assuming certainty is more valuable than clarity. Having that clarity, that peace of mind to really kind of be your best in that moment, I think is very valuable. But leaders sometimes don't kind of mistake those things.
Yeah, well, and I've certainly seen that for myself, and certainly with your first point, I really like that statement, confusing activity with impact, because I think all of us can be busy with whatever it is. We wake up in the morning, we got a litany of emails to get back to, and that kind of takes over our day.
Yeah.
I've really had to start to really hone in on that myself too, is starting to do a better job of managing my activity compared to what are my high impact tasks for the day or the week.
And I feel like with technology and seeing more and more out there and people writing more and more, it's going to become more analog. I think people who really kind of embrace that mindset and be like, I should just go down the hall and have a conversation with, Susie, or I should really call up that friend of mine that I have been thinking of. And I think those are going to be more valuable and more important to have more impact over time than just staying busy checking email and doing AI prompts. Yeah.
And your other point there, clarity seems to be a word that is coming up again and again as we're chatting, which is great. I think a lot of times there is a lot of noise, and kind of going back to that activities part of it, versus being able to take the time to develop some habits to help create clarity in your work.
And to that point, a big unlock for me when I started coaching, create your perfect week. And it can change, by the way. Everything can change. But really focusing on your week. Where are you spending the most time? When do you do your deepest work, your deepest thoughtful work? When is the best time for you to go work out during the day? When is it best to then handle those menial tasks like email? And I think that's a big, big thing that I didn't realize till later in life and going through coaching that really helps kind of maximize what your week looks like.
Is there certain methods that we can use to help brainstorm those ideas? Because I think we do have so many different tasks to do in so many different categories, right? From personal growth, spiritual growth, our relationships, our families, and then professional and fitness, and the list goes on and on. Any sort of ways to help us develop those prompts to do that?
Yeah, and it was really kind of old school. I sat down with an Excel sheet and just kind of blocked out those times during the week. And when I felt at my most, at my best for deep work versus, the menial tasks, and color code them. And, you're going to see that then laid out, kind of how you attack the week. And I think that can help. A lot of people just don't do that. And I didn't even know about doing that until way later in my career, my life. So.
There's a quote I heard early on in my career that was about the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And it's exactly what you're talking about. You're either going to take the time to discipline your life to be around these parameters that you're setting, or you're going to get down the road in a few years and then look back and regret the things that you didn't get done, you didn't do. But either way, there's going to be a pain of discipline or the pain of regret that you're going to have to face.
Yeah, it's very, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what motivated me to get this book done.
Cool.
Is thinking about, I spent a lot of time on the road consulting and doing other things. And, I thought of my kids and what are they going to look back and be like, what was Dad doing when he was on the road all those years? Rather than just listen to me tell stories, it's now, I committed years ago to getting it on paper. And that's what motivated me really to get this book out, whether it speaks to anybody or not. It was really meant so my kids can see like what was happening or what I was doing in this crazy digital consulting field.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah. So I was thinking a lot about my kids when I started it, but also just I had some really unique experiences that I thought would be helpful to document, not only for myself or my family, but also others. It was less of a book on clarity and how to look at things, and it was more just like, well, I'm going to just start documenting some of the big deals I was on or some of the big transformations that I've seen happened. And I went to a former leader of our publication at our consulting firm, and he's like, well, show me an outline of what you're thinking when I was describing what I was doing. He's like, this has legs. You should really talk to some people about this. And I would encourage you to do it. And then along the way, I got encouragement from others that I was given kind of sneak peeks to. My old boss, Mukul Pandya at University of Pennsylvania Wharton School, he has published books before. He has done podcasts. He has sat with business luminaries all over the world. And to get his encouragement at the end really meant a lot too. And he does the foreword in the book. But it was. And then over time, as I was doing this, I was realizing, boy, I think this is coming at a very interesting time with AI now coming out there, and people not sure. There's a lot of grayness, as I mentioned, and ambiguity out there of what this holds for their future. So I think this book, though I started it for a different reason, is now ending up, I think, going to speak to that latter reason. So we'll see where it hits. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I mean, you start the intention of you're going to do this. You spend some years, building up to that, but then you find yourself in this crux in history of technological changes that are occurring.
Yeah.
And then this ends up being at the right place at the right time sort of thing that's being put out.
Yeah, and I could care less on how many copies this sells. I'm self-publishing, and it's more just about what is that intellectual property I want to basically productize and then eventually maybe monetize to put out there, but also just have that recorded history of what I've been through with some very interesting moments. And I do pepper in humor. I mean, there's nothing worse than reading a very dry business book. So, this, though businessy, has some pretty personal and funny and also some concerning moments in it.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it myself too. And for those who are listening and maybe they want to purchase the book or go out there and find it, where can they do that?
Yes. So after this episode airs, there will be a link. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you can get it. You can get ebook or a print version, and it's a very easy, light read. I've been told by my publisher. I think not even more than 150 pages, so you can knock it out in just a plane ride or a trip in the car for a couple hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Will we get an audiobook version of you reading it?
Somebody asked me that. I was told by others who have published books that it's very cost prohibitive now, but maybe with AI that'll help, catch that up. I caught up with the former chairman, who I mentioned in the book, of this consulting firm I was at, very prominent consulting firm, and he has just published a book, so I was asking him just some pointers. And he was a great leader. He was our leader during COVID, and you talk about examples of good leadership, somebody with the empathy and understanding around this. I've never witnessed anything like this. he would have Zoom calls from his granddaughter's room sometimes, and he shed tears with us. And he said, whatever you need at home, we're going to fund it. Just go get it. So other monitors, exercise equipment, whatever makes it more comfortable. And he was managing, 12,000 people across the country, North America.
Yeah.
But anyway, the funny part was he gave me his time. He responded to me immediately. He gave me some pointers on the book. And he said, Jamie, as long as you publish, or he goes, guess how many books sell for the average. If you do more than this number, you're going to sell a lot. I'm thinking thousands, millions. 247.
Oh my gosh.
If you sell more than 247, you're doing above average. So you got your Malcolm Gladwells and other business luminaries selling millions. But then there's a lot of people like me that maybe if we can sell like 10, I'll be, that'll be, so it kind of averages out to 247.
Well, encourage the listeners of the podcast. Let's go out there and bump those numbers up so we can help you get over that 247.
Yeah. And my friends are saying, well, I'll buy the book. I'm like, I want you to buy the book, but re-gift it to somebody who doesn't know me. I'll get you your own book.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're like the third or fourth author that's been a guest on the podcast here.
Okay.
Yeah, most recently, Jim Caveney was class of 92.
Okay.
He published a book called Unlimited Heart that came out last year. And then Maria Sansone was a guest. She was Villa class of 99. She had a cookbook that came out about 2 years ago. And then I might be missing someone in there. But yeah, it's pretty neat. It's great to see our alumni out there producing materials like this, stuff that based on your own professional work experience that us as listeners and then us as consumers can be able to read and be able to learn from your experiences. So we've been talking about AI, and it's about the fact that it's creating both this excitement of ways that we can enhance productivity and we can streamline things and be better, faster, and all those different things. But there's also a lot of anxiety around it, and the question of is this going to replace my job, or what task am I doing now that I'm going to have to learn this whole new system to basically do my job well? I guess from your perspective, with what you've been able to learn and see in the marketplace, what should leaders actually be paying attention to right now versus what's just that noise that's out there?
Yeah, you just mentioned it about the replacing jobs, and I have an interesting part of the book where I talk about being at a very large quick serve restaurant chain. We were doing a large transformation project for them, and they took us out to their innovation kitchen, which is to learn how they do things. And it's a very crystal clear moment in my mind that the two women we were trying to work with on the monitor to basically process an order, we're like, so is this technology you're working on just going to replace us? And this was years before AI. And at the time, we're like, no, if anything, this is going to free you up to be more helpful and more impactful in your work. Which, yes, companies are embracing that. I think it's a very easy thing to see these salacious headline-grabbing things like, Amazon letting go of people who are not hiring because of AI. And sure, there is a part of that exists. I choose to be more positive in my outlook on it, in that it's going to help, advance humanity and really free up people to focus on those more impactful things, but then, basically task those other things out that are not as impactful. And the same thing happened with the internet. It was going to replace everybody's job. It didn't, and it advanced a lot of humanity. And there's my old boss from Wharton, McCool, who I mentioned, who does the foreword in this book. He also had another, what we call in the business, use case around AI, and one that I think is very positive. Unfortunately, he suffered a stroke years ago, and he loves writing, loves interviewing people, loves writing, and this really helped him to stay active. And he can still now voice dictate everything. And if AI wasn't around, that probably wouldn't be there, and he would be much more discouraged to continue on and doing things of that nature. So I was like, that's a headline that people don't talk about enough.
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about the idea that it's going to allow us to do tasks that are more impactful, I think at the crux of any of our jobs, any of our professions, we want to do the impactful things, and then we just usually, drudge through all the things that we have to do as part of the job. I think of a lot of those, menial type tasks that, we've all been there, had to get through, whatever it was, can have AI help enhance that work.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of an hour on whatever task, it takes 15 minutes. then we can focus on the things that we actually like to do with the professions that we have.
Like to do, but also probably, and from a company perspective, bring more value. So staying on the quick serve restaurant thing. So, AI and technology is there to help these restaurateurs or operators or workers at the restaurant free up from maybe behind a desk and just taking orders, order taking. I would say the same with doctors and vets. They're going through a similar transformation where 9 times out of 10, and I was at a conference where I actually, for veterinarians, where they were saying we feel like just order takers now and just data entry people rather than really connecting with my customer, my client, my patient. So that'll be the first step, and there's many more cases like that too, and examples.
Sounds like what I'm hearing from you is, don't have so much anxiety about it, embrace it, and then, I guess, learn it, right? So just kind of as you go through and you get this technology implemented into your life, play with it, figure it out, and just understand that the world's going to be shifting in this direction, but it's not something we should be fearful of.
Correct. Yeah. Stay constantly curious. Always,
that's a good word.
Always just kind of wanting to learn more, and that's, for me at least, that's been helpful in my life and my career, and others. I know it's not for everyone, but others that can embrace that, I think, can be ahead of the game.
And I guess for as I'm looking at this idea of a lot of innovation with technology and just the way business in general is moving at a fast speed, even AI or not, right? Everybody wants to be forward thinking and moving forward in the right direction, right? How can organizations and how can us as leaders embrace that innovation without burning out, the people that we're working with in the process?
Yeah. In consulting, we used to say, show me that company that wants a 5-year plan, and we'll throw it right out the window. People want to think so far ahead on things, rather than just focusing on what's that next step. Really, again, getting that clarity to say, here's what I can do that'll be impactful today or tomorrow, rather than where am I going to be a year or two down the road. I mean, in 1995, when the internet was discovered, did I think I'd be a digital consultant? No. Things can change, and as long as you're open to that and willing and constantly curious, but willing to explore, that ideally I think helps in the long term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the constantly curious, I think that's a great word that you've been using throughout this episode. That's definitely something that I think I can embrace a lot more myself too. Is not going into something thinking I know it all or I know what to expect, but more walking into something with that question of how can I explore this a little further? What could this mean for me and my team? Different things like that.
Yeah, and also with knowing, I had read some really good books during my time. This gentleman came to Wharton to speak. His name is Marcus Buckingham, and he went against popular belief where it's like you should always fix your areas of development, your areas for development, your AFDs, or focus on your weaknesses. And while you should do some of that. His research is more around how do you bet and double down on your strengths. He just wrote a book called Love Plus Work a couple years ago now, but really identifying your drainers and your energizers, and then kind of gravitating towards more of those energizers and trying to diminish the drainers a bit. But again, maybe you do your perfect week map and you look at those and say, okay, this is going to be my focus time to really focus on those energizers. And then I need to take care of things like email and other stuff that may be, drainers, but I'll knock it out in this amount of time, and that's all I'm going to spend on it. So, there's a couple books that have really helped me on my journey, kind of realize that too, and that's just one big one there. Work.
Yeah, that's a great bit of advice right there, to basically focus on the areas of strength. Don't always get so caught up over our weaknesses or deficiencies. Certainly want to pay attention to those areas, but there's an area of strength, double downing on those, and I'll have to look into that. Marcus Buckingham, you said, is the author?
He has a couple of good books.
Yeah.
Another book I gave my son right before he went to college, The Pathless Path. A gentleman, Paul Millard, who was super successful in consulting and at the biggest, most esteemed firms, and just one day realized that was just draining him. And he went on, traveled around the world. He's much younger than I was, but traveled around the world and ended up now he's, publishing books that really, The Pathless Path is a good book, especially for those people trying to figure out, no matter what age.
Yeah. That's really cool. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that one too. We've been talking about AI, but you know, you obviously see a lot with businesses through the different careers you've had, the consulting work and whatnot. I guess outside of AI, as I'll set up this question, what's maybe a business trend you believe is being misunderstood or overhyped today? And if AI is the most obvious one that, you know, is best for you to answer, that's fine. But just curious outside of AI if there's anything that's sticking out to you.
Misunderstood or overhyped?
Yeah, misunderstood or overhyped. If there's any business trends that people are just kind of overanalyzing and overlooking at, that us as professionals, you know, not getting so much caught up in that noise again, that kind of category.
Success isn't what it used to look like. People still focus on climbing the ladder, doing well, checking the boxes in what they think is a perfect success career path. I think people, in fact, you can attribute this maybe to AI a little bit, but shaking things up. But other things would have been shooken up in the past are taking a step back and realizing that success doesn't look like what it used to look like. You know, if you're always going for those promotions, the next title, the bigger paycheck, there's people that do focus on that, and that is fine. But it doesn't mean all you're worth either. There's a lot of other things that can bring gratitude. So helping mentor younger colleagues, you know, especially people of my age, using that career kind of experience to help others, and just servicing others, I think is a big one that, not overhyped, sorry, but overlooked, that I think is going to be bigger, is going to play a bigger role than I think, you know, and I think AI and technology is exposing that those people with those frameworks, that experience, they will have a role to play. And serving others mainly is going to be the way they can do that and realize that.
Yeah, well, that's a great take. I like how you're framing up the idea of success. It's going to look differently than what most people are maybe accustomed to hearing about as success was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's just a different trajectory nowadays. And it's a different context in which we need to evaluate what is success for us.
Yeah. A lot of technology is just driving people away from having those personal interactions that we had at one point, you know, and how do you try to reclaim some of that, or at least keep the connection human when in an age of technology?
Well, this wasn't a question I sent you over, but how would you define success? What does that mean to you?
Well, right now, you know, as writing this book, you know, having having people around you that you can inspire to also be constantly curious and also look for that personal connection. You know, nothing pleases me more than seeing people, kids, older, maybe younger adults, reaching out and being personable about things rather than just another email or, you know, a text message, or that art of conversation and that connection with technology does get muted. Yeah. So how to amplify that? That brings me joy to see when that happens. You want that to happen. You know, I mentioned earlier, AI is going to help really kind of accelerate and scale humanity, but there has to be a human personal connection with it too, and that focus.
That's great. I think for all of us, it's good and important for us to evaluate from time to time, how do we define success? Because I'm sure your definition of success that you gave us just now is different than 10 years ago. Yeah. Is different than when you left prep in 94. You know, every kind of different season of your life, there's a new definition of what success means. And I think it's important for all of us to evaluate that from time to time and say, what is success in this season of my life? Yeah. You know, different life stages means different definitions.
Yeah, and you can have that person who maybe deems himself or others look at as successful, the big title, the salary, whatever, they may be completely miserable, and you don't know that. Right. So that's where the being personable and human with it kind of comes in. I have unfortunately plenty of friends who have climbed to the top of the top in the business world that I know are maybe miserable in some other instance, and they probably view it as, I'd rather trade off and have this either happiness with my family or, you know, my life in another way than all the titles and all the promotions and everything.
Yeah, that's I'm starting to see that, you know, in my sphere of friends. They're starting to get those jobs and those careers that they thought was going to be the thing for them, and they're kind of realizing it's a little bit empty, you know, in terms of where they're at, and it's a lot more stressful and demanding, and Meanwhile, they want to start having a family and, all those different conflicts of life that they have to start navigating through. So I'm definitely starting to see that.
And nobody has it figured out.
Right.
Your journey will be unique. There's only one of you. Everybody's a special little snowflake. But you're one-on-one, and your journey is going to be different from the next person's. But, navigating that, having help and having a group and investing in yourself, I think can help you navigate that than just going and trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that's a great phrase, in regards to nobody's got it figured out. Yeah. So I guess to put that back on you and say, as emerging leaders, people are in their profession and they're climbing the ranks in their career. And obviously, as we're talking about this stuff in the podcast, you're not diminishing those who are chasing that ladder of success. Everybody's got their own success goals and what they're pursuing. But I guess from your position, what advice would you have for us that are emerging leaders who maybe do feel that pressure to have it all figured out at this point in our life?
Yeah, it's timely because about a month ago I sent this to my coaching group. It was a short video. It was an interview with a gentleman named Rick Rubin. And for those who don't know Rick Rubin, big music producer with acts like the Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and others, but went into different genres. And as I was finishing the book and thinking what's next, I was also thinking, where do I take this? And the quote, it was very timely. It was, just focus on that one thing right in front of you, what's next right now. Don't look beyond that. You put everything you have into that work, into that piece of work that you're doing. Other things will come from that. It's just a waste of time to think about what's going to come from that afterwards. So not to say that you shouldn't, obviously growing a family, growing careers, you do need to have some thought there, but trying to just figure out taking that next step and where it's going to go, I think is the most important thing. Think about, I was thinking about on the way down here too, how many people that never take that one step below on the Grand Canyon? A lot. There's only like 1% of people that ever do that. And it's never going to be perfect. I guess the other big point I was thinking about driving down here today, messy offers. And for those who don't know what messy offers, it's never going to be perfect. When I left consulting and started my LLC, did I know what it was going to be? No, and it's taken 5 different turns since then, between LLC, back to W-2, and it's never going to be perfect, but just take that next step, and it usually works out.
Yeah, and I think, again, some common themes that we've been talking about through the podcast, impactful work, where I think when you do focus on just doing the next thing well, you're focusing on the thing that's going to be the most impactful for your career also.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking about, in terms of the million things I could be working on in terms of a year down the road, 2 years down the road, what could build towards that. But really, when you boil it down, what's the thing I need to do this week? What's the most impactful? And that's going to translate into building off of that in terms of future growth, development, things that I might be aspiring to achieve as well.
Yeah. In fact, that just spawned another idea in my head. Beyond planning the perfect week, I've gotten into journaling over the past couple of years. And that is really, honestly, has really been a big motivator to help me finish this book too. I start off with wins, gratitudes, fears, and dreams. And I list a couple bullets underneath each of those daily. And, it is really helpful. You get a lot of these executive coaches or authors or others, they talk about that. If you can envision that in your mind, you can write it down, you subconsciously are committing to that. And that was something the coach, Matt Doan, who I've been in that program with, had started me on. I'd never done that before, but it has been very helpful.
Yeah, that's actually neat. This episode's coming out in January here.
Yeah.
Kind of, people have New Year's resolutions, things like that. I would encourage anybody, and I know this is something I want to do, is journal more. So I think that's a great kind of parameter to follow, is wins, gratitude, fears, and dreams. To basically, and like you said, just a couple bullet points. You don't need to write this whole long narrative about your day. But just the habit of starting to do that on a daily practice will add up to years down the road. I'm sure you look back on those now and think, wow, I forgot I dealt with that.
I think I wrote down book out the 3 years ago, finally got there. I know this past summer did the Presque Isle Sprint Triathlon. My kids got me to do that, and that was, motivated me to get in shape and get ready for that. And I was journaling those all along the way, so it is kind of funny to look back at that now.
That's cool. Well, I got a couple more questions for you as we wind down here on the episode of the podcast. So if somebody's been listening to you talk now, and they've been hearing about this, all the different things you've been sharing about your book and all the different questions I've been asking you. And if somebody's sitting there asking themselves, what's next for me? In regards to everything you've been sharing. I guess what's one concrete step that you can leave us with that you'd challenge us to take this week?
Yeah, well, I give you a couple. Journaling.
Yep. That's a great one right there.
Investing in yourself, but also, thinking, have that positive attitude. You're not left behind, and things are maybe going to look messy at times, but you will figure it out, and just focusing on that next step. So hopefully I've kind of interspersed multiple things that people can take away from that in, maybe short sound bites, but those are some of the top ones.
Yeah, I always enjoy recording these episodes because I know our listeners are getting value, but I'm getting value here. I've been writing down a bunch of notes you've been talking, and there's things that I'm learning from you as well, and I appreciate everything you've been able to share with us. It helps all of us. So last question for you.
Yeah.
It's a fun one. I call it my bonus question because I ask every alumnus or alumna who's been on the podcast this question at the very end. It's fun to hear the different answers people have to the question, but so if you could go back in time, all right, and you could be the speaker at your graduation from prep, speak to your classmates, but knowing what you know now in this season, that you've experienced in life, what would you say to your classmates then?
Two things. One, no matter what, and no matter what you're thinking or going through, especially with this technology focus of what we've been talking about, you're not going to be left behind. You've been successful. You are graduating from somewhere that really has set you up for success, and you'll figure it out. And also, you can lean on and depend on your classmates to be there and help you through that. I realized that a lot being here this past week and showing my son and my daughter places I used to go to and where maybe some of my old classmates used to work. One just stopped over the house the other day, and there's that bond there that not only helps motivate you but pushes you forward, and you'll have people there for you. But yeah, you're not going to be left behind. You'll figure it out. If I can be a living example of that from, nobody even knew what digital consulting was going to be in 1990s, and figured it out, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's neat also when you started off the episode, you're talking about how prep helped lay that foundation for many of us to be able to, have those pursuits and those dreams and those goals that, again, nothing was given when we were at prep, but that foundation that was laid for us on what's expected in terms of professional and personal goals and aspirations. To your point, you won't be left behind because you have a good foundation here that you got at prep, and it's going to help you accomplish great things in your life. And I think it's a great message to be able to leave.
Yeah. And just stay true to yourself and just take that next step.
That's right. Well, this has been awesome, Jamie.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
really appreciate you coming on and stopping in to record this episode while you're here in Erie.
And Jimmy, we should share, obviously, with my background in education, I think this is a very valuable thing that you're doing for alumni or friends or family of the school to experience because, as things evolve and change, people consume things in different ways. So having something like this that goes beyond just like the newsletter or the magazine, I think is super helpful. And I look forward to seeing it grow. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that word of encouragement. It's been a lot of fun. What'd I say? You're episode 95 of the episode of the podcast. So I've gotten to meet some really cool people, and I've had some great conversations. And this is another one that I can add to the list of ones of some of my top episodes that I enjoy having. So it's been great. And I appreciate all the nuggets you've left with us.
And I think the only other, Jeremy Young, he was a class of '94. I'll have to look up all the class of '94 people that you've had on.
Yep. I had Jeremy on. He was maybe episode like 25 or 26, roundabout somewhere in there. But yeah, Jeremy was on, and he's obviously been doing some great things in his career as well, and that's a good episode to go back to.
You got a lot of people out there, so you'll never be struggling to find people for good content. So
that's right.
A lot of interesting stories out there too, I'm sure.
There definitely is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Jamie. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.